Well, as another tenth season draws to a disappointing close in Northern Ireland, we are back for our end of season review. We've just been pipped by Linfield again. We know we've got some big work already planned for the summer, but if we're going to make it to the top in this save, then quite frankly, nobody is safe. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 114 of this Build a Nation story, Lifting Spirits with me, Daniel. We are back today for two sort of lines of attack in this episode. Our end of season review with Distillery, in which we need to make big summer plans because this year, whether I like it or not, has got to be the year we go to the next level. We cannot go into a 13th season of this save and not be favourites for the domestic league title. We've already been pipped by Linfield a number of times. They're the dominant force in this nation, and we are going to have to do something about it. You know there's pretty big summer work planned already. You know there's probably more on the horizon. But today we're going to have a real look and decide what we want to do. First in terms of tactical style, and secondly in terms of personnel. Second up, we're going to focus on the World Cup coming up with Northern Ireland. I've not shown you any action since I got the managerial job for the nation. But we are taking part in a major tournament for the first time, and Brazil and Mali, two very different styles of games. But I want to show you a little bit about the squad and a little bit about the players I'm planning to pick. So we'll do all that in a moment. The next episode will be the Northern Ireland World Cup group games, and of course we'll make our further plans from there. But if you're looking forward to all of that, the moment Build a Club becomes Build a Nation, both national team and domestically, then please do put a thumbs up on it. We've of course got a lot to get through today, and we of course finished the season with double heartbreak. So let's have a quick look at our squad and what the end of season messages have been, because the truth of the matter is we're going to need a budget to work with, and we're going to need to do a lot of work, and we're going to have to change our style. So let's go and get through to the inbox and show you what's been happening in the last week or so. We've of course had a growth in social media in terms of fan base and all of that sort of stuff, but we're playing in Europe now. We're becoming a regular. It makes sense. The budget's not bad because if you consider that we've already done two pretty big bits of work for the summer with Judah McKenzie joining permanently, that's £1 million worth of transfers, and we're still keeping 1.5 million. I think we're all right with that. We've got a little bit of wage budget to work with, but we'll probably have to shift some across. The big problem though comes in the club expectations, because I said this is the point we've now got to get past Linfield. Will the board agree? The same chairman has won his election, which is a problem after what happened in January, and I'm going to stick my neck on the line here. Him selling Rory Lennon, I still think cost us the title, and the fact that he's then saying you've got to do more is a little bit of a frustration. But next season, we have got the expectation of win the Premiership. We haven't got the option of being back up to Linfield. We haven't got the option of playing catch-up to Larne for most of the year. We have got to win, and we need a stronger squad. You also said the SPFL Trust Trophy isn't that important. Well, we've got an objective here that says we've got to win it in 2 years, so maybe it's more important than we thought about. We're going to see how we get on next time, but we've also got to play possession football, attacking football, and set pieces. And I know a few of you have mentioned about the keeping of the ball and playing shorter passing, but that is something that is strongly desired, so we've got to try and make that happen. Let's go through to the squad though and show you what we've got to work with, because I feel like prior to this year, there had been a little bit too much stagnation. A lot of those backup players that are great to have in the squad, I'd still like to have in the reserves, but are too much of an important part of our team. And this year, that is going to have to change. We're going to have to take some gambles on the outs. We're starting to get interest for decent money in players as well. So the likes of Tom Robinson, he would have gone on deadline day in January if it hadn't been for Lennon being sold under our nose, because later in that evening, we got a bigger offer for Robinson than the one that was taken for Lennon. So a little bit frustrating, because I'd rather have kept the opposite player, but it wasn't to be. We've got loads of players coming back from loan, all of them probably not good enough, and I think we've got to be honest at this point, haven't we? For the likes of Harley Jones, Sean Daniels, Archie Whitehall, Jaffet and Pardy, Lewis Scott, we've kept the door open a little bit for most of them. At this point, we just need to say sorry and goodbye, because it is time to go to the next level, and those boys are not going to do it. So I've got two sort of objectives looking at the squad this summer. The first one is wherever we can, improve the first 11. because at the very worst, it means that we've got players who are going to be first team now who become backup next year. In the worst case scenario, the players coming in become strong second options and give us a stronger squad than we had before. The fact that at times this season, I know it changed as the year went on, but at the start of the year, McClellan and Bobby Harvey were backup players. We had Archie Whitehall featuring in the squad frequently. Jaffet and Pardee was still the backup right winger in the first half of the year, alongside McElhatton. Dunn didn't join the squad until January for the Irish Premiership, and Puarte was still first choice. So we are making big upgrades along the way, but we've got to make more of them as we go along. And I want to have 3 or 4 standout players, or players who are as good as the ones we've got now, with standout potential for the future. And if that means that we can renew loans and get the likes of Parry in permanently, then brilliant. We've also got to bear in mind the homegrown ruling though, because we've not got a number of players homegrown in the nation, and it is costing us in terms of squad depth and squad size domestically. And the fact we've still got some very poor homegrown at the club players in tells you a lot. But we've got a few that are getting close to that now. Obviously Morgan Griffiths is one. We would have had Williams this year if he hadn't left, but Mackenzie now comes permanently. He's 1 year away. We can keep hold of Stow, he'll be the same as well. So there is definitely potential on that front. The other side of it, though, is are those players going to be good enough? Brendan Thompson is already a sort of second or third choice backup. We've already got centre-halves on the horizon who would come in, be good for the squad, but aren't going to be standouts. So we've got to get the balance in that right. We're going to need a few of them, but we still need to get superstars. And that is where this summer recruitment becomes key. We know we've got the budget. We know we've got the potential to sell a few more players. We've already got a fair few deals wrapped up, and I can show you them now. 3 of them you know about, 2 of them currently here, and we've got a 4th player, which I was talking about with the homegrown in the nation. So Darren Mills, he's been a squad player this year, but he's in a better position than McClellan. He's 5 years younger. He's homegrown at the nation. He's also got a fairly professional personality. Ignore the 2-star summary, that's for the national team. He was on the cusp of that squad, by the way. But he is a really solid player, not the standard we want. If we can get squad players where that is our worst limit, and for homegrown in the nation, this is what we're looking at. At the moment, our emergency cover is Bobby Harvey. This is a huge step up. If I compare it, Bobby Harvey at the moment, let me show you his ability. Yeah, we're talking about different levels of player. So that is what we've got to work on improving as this summer goes on. We've also got Mackenzie joining permanently. We've got Jude joining permanently and young Paul Symington coming in. We are trying to bolster this squad and make sure it's as strong as possible. So that is the big plan for the summer on that front. I hope you agree with it. There are going to be some big transfers, and here is how I'm hoping to achieve it. Now, the first thing I've got at the moment is a big recruitment focus for a striker, because I just want a proper poaching goal scorer, someone who is going to run in behind, take his chances. Basically, I want a striker that's of the current ability of a Simpson or a Lafferty, but with the attribute balance of a Jonathan McElhatton, who is a finisher, composed, runs in behind, and he's quick. So that's what we're looking for. What I've got set up elsewhere, though, and they're poorly named, so you'll have to forgive me, but I've got a few setups that I rely on regularly. So we're looking at other places in the UK. We've got the Welsh Premier League being scouted, Scotland, a general UK and Ireland, etc. But the main things that we have a look at here, we've got a 15 to 19, which basically covers up to the age of 20. And it's a really good one that finds players with high potential. So it's only set to about 2-star current ability, but 3.5 potential minimum. And it means that we can find players who are A, going to get released from clubs in England or Scotland in that case, because there are lots of good players coming out of academies. We've had success over the years. Morgan Griffiths being a key example, who came at 18 from Everton and has now become homegrown at the club and is still a core part of the squad. So they're the sort of players we've got to try and get in. Look at Miles Stowell last year. He might be on the same track. He came through this search item. So this is the main one for us set up. It's ongoing. It's looking for any position. And we've got 2 scouts doing it at all times. So it's not a particularly detailed search, but it's the most important one for me, finding young players. It sort of works in 2 ways. Towards the end of the season, from maybe December to June, it helps us find players who are going to be available on a free or cheap transfers. When you look at sort of July, August, maybe all the way through to December for the January window, it's finding us players who we might be able to get on loan and keeps a track of the ones we've missed out on. So it's a really good search to have. I'd recommend it if you're doing a builder nation or a builder club. It just helps you find those players that are maybe coming out of systems. and maybe are going to be looking for cheap moves. It's also a good way of keeping track of them too, because then if they don't get picked up by October, November time, I know it's a different search, but take a Daniel Dunn for example, you can then keep hold of them and bring them in October and keep trials up as well. The other one that I use mainly is this All One. Now it's badly named, so you'll have to forgive me for it, but what this is doing is looking for players who are homegrown in Northern Ireland, trained between the ages of 15 and 21, because at the moment that's what the quota is for the Northern Irish Premiership. So we've got that set at 2.5 star. We're not looking for masses of ability. We're not looking for players who are going to be standout, but this is finding squad players who can meet my quota and might be acceptable enough to do it. And the good thing in this instance is that we have found players via it. There's one I would absolutely love to bring in this summer, which is this Owen Kidd. He is so good at 17, but looks like he's going to go to England. We missed out on one from Crusaders, and he won't even discuss terms with us at the minute. That's the sort of player you can find, though. But that's where Darren Mills has come from. Hopefully he'll be a big contributor. But if anything, I would say those are your main two. The 15 to 19, whether you're doing a club or a nation save. And that one, looking at the youth players, if you're doing a build a nation or you need to meet a homegrown quota, can be a great way to fill your squad and find good backup players for cheap. So really good moves there. The recruitment team is at full capacity. I haven't shown you this screen for a while, but I'm sure you can understand it if you've watched me for a long time. We've just had another scout and physio added to the books. I put all of my emphasis in coaching. Making sure you've got the best backroom team is more important than making sure you've got the best players. And that's why we were competing in second and third, probably before we had the second and third best squad. Now it's just about the financial gains to catch up with Linfield and Larne and their years in Europe. But that will come over the next couple of years and we will be all the better for it. So a big summer to come on the recruitment front, but let's move over to the tactical side because there are a few things that I really want to change here. Now, we've had to play in a certain way for a long time because we've always had sort of, well, part-time facilities for the most part, part-time training for a large part of this save, but also we've not really had the best quality of player. Now we have. We are a top side and we've got to compete that way. So one of the changes we've made the last couple of years, we've moved a bit more positive. We've gone to more aggressive roles in the forward positions this season. That did help us bolster our goal threat later on in the year. But there's still been a number of frustrations. And I think it's due to a little bit of counterbalancing and a little bit of the old guard still taking shape. So I feel now that we're full-time, with a full pre-season, yes, we've got European qualifiers, but one tie victory and we're guaranteed at least Europa Conference group stage football. I feel this is the summer we've got to go for it. So the changes I'm looking at generally are firstly in terms of tactical roles. We're going to go for 2 defending centre-halves, no stopper and cover. We've seen so many missed headers and no covering as a result. I just want to have decent centre-halves and now we've got that. In midfield, I'm not going to change too much because I did most of it earlier in the year. But we will probably adjust what we do with the wide players, certainly in their roles. Maybe go for an advanced playmaker, try and incorporate something like that and play a little bit more narrowly. Because when we've gone wide, generally, we're not creating a huge amount. And let's be fair, there's one thing that the other sides in the Irish Prem can compete with. It's the fact that they've got big, tall centre-halves who can win headers. So we probably need to take advantage of our strengths over them. In terms of the tactical style, though, there are definitely going to be some things that change because although this has got more positive over the years, it did start as a counter-attacking tactic. We've always had a quick striker, played in behind, got the number 10 supporting them. Now we've got a team that can dominate games, and I want to try and reflect that in the way we play. So we obviously put on work ball into the box later in the season, which is good for creating chances, but it doesn't match up with some of the other things we're doing because most of our play we're trying to do a bit more quickly. Now, we've got to keep the possession fairly short because that is the most desired trait of the board. And given that we might not win the Irish Prem, we've got to do as much to win them over as possible. Of course, I could consider adding things like run at the defence on because we've got a lot of players who are very good on the ball now. I've got to consider who we sign in the summer. So I'll probably make that sort of decision once I know who's going to be the poacher, once I know who's going to be the wide men, etc. The big thing that's got to change, though, is our sort of on-the-counter style. We can play out via the centre-backs and full-backs now because we've got a lot of good players. But I don't feel we need to play on the counter because where we're doing that, what you're basically seeing is a lot of players running ahead of the ball and trying to get in behind, which is fine on the striker's front. He's still going to do it. I've no doubt on that. If you're playing an advanced forward or a poacher, they're going to be on the shoulder. What we've got a real problem with, though, is 4 players pushing forward, pushing their defence back. And then we're just stuck in a sort of trap with 9 defenders behind the ball, sometimes even all 10. So we're going to have to try and change that next year. I'm not going to go holding our shape in that, but I'm going to gradually move towards it. So we'll take the counter off, and if that's not enough, then we'll probably hold our shape more too. But I just want to get more into a dominant strategy rather than a quick, let's try and bombard them on the counter, because we are going to have the lion's share of the ball, as you've seen this season, and a lot more teams are going to sit back against us and try and frustrate us, and we've got to find a way to get through them. And a quick gun-ho approach is not really achieving that. We need to create better chances, and we need to have a more considered build-up. The final thing I'm really considering is how we win the ball back. Now, we've all talked about the schedule in the Irish Premiership. It is bonkers, particularly when we're playing Thursday nights. We're in the SPFL Trophy, we do well in the Cups, whatever. We are having loads of games. Now, that's always been a problem because we've been trying to preserve fitness before. I don't feel if we get what we want done this summer that we're going to need to do that. We have got 2 or 2.5 teams that are capable of beating, well, virtually everyone bar Linfield, Larne, and maybe Coleraine and Glentoran might nick a point. But generally speaking, I can probably put out any 11 we've got registered against 8 or 9 of the teams in the league and be the favourites. There's no denying that. So we've got to start playing that way. And what I want to focus on is winning the ball back quicker and winning it back higher up the pitch. Now, I'm not sure about the defensive line and the block yet. We'll make a decision again based on what players we can add. If we've got all quicker defenders, great. But I am aware that a lot of teams just chuck a quick player up front and run in behind. What I'm more intent on doing, though, is winning the ball back quicker. Can we now, with 4 attacking duties on our front 4, prevent short goalkeeper distribution? Can we press more often? Can we counter press? Can we press higher up the pitch? And make sure that when we lose possession, instead of inviting a chance onto us each time, that we are winning the ball back almost immediately and stopping them getting out, which is the real aim here. Now, I don't want you to be fooled here. I'm not saying we're overnight going to turn into Klopp's Liverpool in their prime. We're not going to become a no-mercy football team. But I want to edge towards it this season. I'm basically looking at this tactical change as a 2-year plan to get to where we want to. But if we do it all in one go, it will probably be a very difficult half a year. And with the board pressure of winning a league next year, I probably now can't do that. So what I'm going to do is edge towards it over a 2-season period. And hopefully get to the summer of, say, 2036. We're ready for a big last push in a series for 5 more years. At that point, we can then go to an attacking mentality. We can then press all the way. We can play a higher line. But at the moment, I want to make sure that we're still competitive. We don't lose too much on the pitch, but we still are able to push towards our objective. So they're the main changes we're looking at. Pressing and counter-pressing more and higher up the pitch to get the ball back more quickly. The second one is making sure we hold the ball rather than trying to counter at speed and trying to create those moves where we are pushing them out of position. We're moving the ball quickly in the midfield area and creating some of those goals where you're laying it and cutting it back across the box. The third thing, and probably the most important thing, is to make sure that we get the roles and duties right. No more one defender go and attack it, one defender sit back and cope. We've not got one quick defender in our back line now, and we've not only got one great defender in the air. We've got a fully good defence. So we're going to play a standard defensive line and we are going to trust them, particularly if we're taking our new approach to pressing and not having a defender dropping off. We want to have a flat back 4 that is winning the ball back high up and is staying high up. Because what we're going to see is a lot of times now, if the press works, they're going to be forced into clearing it long. And when they get to the sort of halfway line, we don't want to have a free header because one defender's dropping off to cover. We want them both going and winning it. And they've got the capability to do it. Both McKenzie and Goss are great in the air, and anyone else who comes in will be too. So that is the big tactical plan for this summer. Let me know if you agree with it down in the comments. Let's very quickly have a look over at Northern Ireland now. I should just say, by the way, finances are healthy, there's training facility upgrades coming, and there's basically European League stage football again. So we know we're all right on that front. Let's move over and have a look at Northern Ireland now, because the national team have reached a massive achievement. Through as a lucky loser to the World Cup, we've got 2 warm-up games before our big start against Brazil. We will get battered in that game, I'm sure. But if we have a look at the squad, I've sort of been adding players in because you get a 55-man provisional squad and I want people to feel wanted. But this is a real opportunity for us. Firstly, Neil Kane could potentially get in the squad. Dermot Lafferty's not that far away either, but would be good to have him as a third keeper. And there are a few good young players coming through in this Northern Ireland team now. It's generally been very settled, and we've got a couple of big issues, which is Jamal Lewis is about to retire at left back, and there's next to no options in that position. There are some really good goal scorers. There are some really creative players, though. If we look at the right side of our defence, 21-year-old Liam Monaghan, very good young fullback. Gavin Hagan, very good centre-half. Both of those playing regularly in the Premier League. Hagan, a model citizen. Morgan Hassin, the former young Linfield and Ballymena keeper. Really good one at first choice level for us now. And even in midfield, the likes of Niall Ives, he's playing at RB Leipzig. There is a dotting of real quality around this team. Jamie Donnelly's still at Villarreal, and he is banging the goals in at international level. So many positives, so many good players. But we've got to start looking to the future as well, because I'm aware that not a lot of this squad is young. And although it's not quite my first team at the moment, the other people who would be in Albert Press, another one from the Linfield and Ballymena brigade, but then Clingham, Bradley, they're all getting towards 30, and a few of the others are in the 30s now too. So to make this squad better for the future, we've got to bring in youth. And when picking a squad, I've tried to find a couple, but as you can see, there's not that many really young ones who are great. The biggest prospect though is Cameron Thompson. He is a 19-year-old on loan from Sheffield United to Bristol Rovers. And he's someone who I'm a little bit annoyed about, to be honest, because he's a very good young defender, albeit not the tallest. He's probably going to be forced out to left back just because we haven't got any other players. So he's someone who I might put in the World Cup squad just to get used to the big occasion before we move on to the next tournament. Because at the moment, our only other left back options are 31-year-old Sean Stewart at Linfield, who is starting to decline, is a pretty average player anyway, to be honest, and is leaving them in December. So probably isn't going to be playing at the top level for much longer. You then add in the other options about, there's a Jeffcott on the bench, Henry Jeffcott, not a natural left footer, not very physical, not very good. Bit more of a utility right back or centre half in all honesty, but there's not brilliant depth, there's not great quality. To reach a World Cup is a great achievement. We've been fortunate that we've been able to keep the first 11 fit for most of the qualifiers. We've only ever had the odd suspension in positions we can cope, like centre midfield. There's also the balance at this level of having players who aren't regulars for their clubs. So you look at Morgan Hassin, he's a number 2 at Southampton, barely plays a game, 1 Premier League appearance this year. Daniel Ballard never turns up fully fit because he's a backup player for Celtic at 34, albeit he's going to be looking for a club this summer. Maybe someone we can have a go with Distillery at getting. It does mean that we get to international breaks and we've got 3 or 4 who can never do the 2 games fully, or we have to think about resting at the hour mark because we know they're not going to be able to cope. So that's what we've got to look forward to. You'll see a lot of these boys in a bit more detail at the World Cup. But those are my summer plans for Distillery. Do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know which people you think should no longer be part of this club and what position should we be most looking to improve. Of course, part of it will depend on whether we can get the likes of Reed and Smith in, but even then, we've got to have strong backups. No Bobby Harveys, no emergency backup midfielders. This is the chance to push on to the next level, and maybe we'll be able to get some gems this summer. If you're looking forward to finding out if we do, and you did enjoy this season review, then please do put a thumbs up on it. Let me know how you think we'll get on at the World Cup. It's of course a massive opportunity for Northern Ireland, but we will be huge underdogs. And then we'll be back after that for a big summer transfer special with Distillery. If you want to stay up to date with it all and make sure that you don't miss anything, then please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. In the meantime, we'll be back with a head coach tomorrow. That one is up in the eye above. Loads of clips from the podcast channel up there too. And why not come and check out our live streams on Twitch as well. But thank you very much for watching as always. Your support is greatly appreciated. And we'll see you back here next time as the World Cup begins for the Northern Ireland national team.